All right, guys, here's our question. Do you think you would persuade more people if you seem super opinionated and biased, or if you seem super fair and unbiased? Now, a lot of people come back to me on this question and they say, well, I think that in order to convince people, you should have a clear opinion and, like a thesis statement, and you should say it out loud, and then you should give all of your well-reasoned arguments, and here's what I think, and here's why, and all the data to support it, and that would be good, right? Well, I get that. I got it. That's what you've learned in school so far. Unfortunately, that's not really how it works in the real world most of the time. So, confirmation bias. You guys have probably heard of this thing. When you believe something and you read something that agrees with what you believe, then you believe that thing more. And when you read something that disagrees with what you believe, then you just assume that that thing is stupid, right? So, I believe apples are the best fruits in the entire world, and I read something that says, apples help with your eyes, and they help with your motivation, and they have all these vitamins, and I'm like, yeah, totally. That's why apples are the best. And then I read this other study that says, well, maybe this one type of apple is actually associated with, like, some type of cancer or something. And I'm like, nah, it's probably not true. I don't think so. Like, the data seems a little bit iffy. I don't know. Right? Now, we all do that. About trivial things, sometimes about big things. It's a human nature type of a thing. It happens. You want to look out for it. But because this happens so often, and it's also so bananas, like super irrational, really, when you think about it, it has been the topic of like a gajillion studies. So many studies, right? And in one particular study, what they found was, so they tested for the confirmation bias, and they got that. And then afterwards, they asked the people, okay, now how do you feel about this particular topic? So in this one Stanford study, the topic was capital punishment. Capital punishment is the death penalty, right? So some people were in favor, some people were against. They did this confirmation bias study, and then after the study, the additional crazy thing was that the people who originally believed in capital punishment now believed in it even more than they originally had. And the people who believed that it was bad, capital punishment is bad, believed that even more than they had before. So, not only do we agree with any study that agrees with us, and disagree with any study that disagrees with us, okay, whatever our beliefs are, but also, in the face of any data at all, even data that goes directly against what you believe, in the face of data or true facts, literally facts, you can still walk away believing what you originally believed even more firmly. Even though the people who believed in capital punishment read a study essentially proving that capital punishment is bad, they still walked away believing that capital punishment is absolutely the best, even more firm in their convictions. If that's not bananas, I don't even know what is, right? It's crazy. So with all of that, we have to understand human nature, fundamental human nature. This is why I believe that psychology is just one of the most fascinating, topics. So keeping that in mind, when we think about, okay, should our arguments have, lots of clear data and a very obvious intention, will that really help? I mean, what if people just read your thesis and your articles and your reasons and all this stuff, and then they just go back to believing what they originally believed? This is super common. So, what do people do to get through this? Let's talk about gun control and school shootings. This is an ugly topic, right? And every time there's a school shooting, the topic of gun control comes up. Now, in the realm of the pro-Second Amendment, okay, so Second Amendment rights and defenders, they have kind of two options. The first option is to be very, very obvious and opinionated. And they come out and they say, I do not believe that you should do any gun control. I think gun control is bad, and we shouldn't do it, and here are my reasons why X, Y, and Z. Now, right after a school shooting happens, what happens to those people? They just get totally yelled at. Like, everybody's like, oh my gosh, like, all these kids just died. I mean, how can you be so heartless, so cruel? You're a horrible person to have the beliefs that you have. How could you not want to control them? Oh my gosh. And everybody totally freaks out. No one listens to those people. No one listens to them because there's too much emotion involved in the school shooting. It's a horrible, horrible thing. And we're not going to listen with reason. But there's another approach, and this is the more subtle approach. All right? So try this one on for size. You can say something to the effect of, did you hear about, the other day, there was an attempted school shooting, but there was an armed guard on the campus, an armed police officer on that school campus, who shot the intruder before he was able to kill anyone. Did you hear about that story? And that's it. Now, it's not clear that I have any particular intention. I mean, honestly, if you think about it, it just sounds like I'm telling you about a news story I heard about. I seem so unbiased. Like, oh, did you hear about that story? Did you hear about the news? Did you hear that it's going to be 40 degrees tomorrow? It's just like the weather. It's just no big deal. Totally unbiased, right? Now, what comes out of that? Now you're going to start to think, well, gee, maybe, if all of the armed shooters, all the people who, go into these schools and try to, shoot up all these kids, all these horrible people who do that, if they got shot first or in some way, incapacitated, then what would happen? Maybe all those kids wouldn't die. Now, it's an idea. It's an idea that grows, but it's an idea that grows in your mind. And the thing is, if you have an idea that you feel like you brought out, okay, if I tell you my idea and then I tell you that you're supposed to have my idea, you could reject it. But if I give you just some casual information and you get to form your own opinions from there, now I can still shape what opinions you form, or I can try to, right? But you're the one who sort of starts to put all those pieces together. And that's where it becomes so powerful. That's where persuasion really, really kicks in. Because most of the time you guys don't even realize that people are doing this to you. And that's what this whole curriculum is about. Alright? So, this is the idea. You can ask me about my opinions on gun control other times, okay? The point is not what I believe. The point is that's what the arguments can look like. The very, very obvious and the very, very subtle. And we want to think about the differences of those opinions and the way that they're put forth. And we're going to use all this information to attack the next couple questions.